ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to In Conversation with the Royal Butler. And once again, as always, I am joined by my trusty sidekick, Shimba, who now seems to want to be involved in every single one of these conversations. As I've mentioned before, it's a beautiful day here again, and he wants to come inside as soon as he knows that I'm doing the filming. So here he is, wanting to join me for today's In Conversation. So Shimba, welcome back. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to all of you for once again joining me for another In Conversation. Can I just once again say a huge thank you for all the thumbs up, the likes, the comments, the new subscribers, the old subscribers for keeping coming back. It's unbelievable, and I'm really pleased that these conversations have been enjoyed by all of you, and not only now on YouTube, but even, dare I say, on podcasts as well. So I've even ventured into that. So if you do enjoy listening to these conversations and watching these conversations, you can now either go on to hear them on Apple Podcasts or Spotify under the Royal Butler In Conversation, or if you're already listening to them on a podcast, then you can find the videos if you want to see me and Shimba the Royal Dashant. You can go on YouTube and find the conversations there. And also, thank you for watching the At Home with the Royal Butler, which is every Wednesday. And I think this week's episode was a huge success. The trip to London, I think quite a lot of you enjoyed visiting the London Jewellers with me. Right, time to go on with today's In Conversation. And of course, this is a very different In Conversation because we're doing a Q&A. And what I'm really overwhelmed and thrilled about is how many questions have been sent in. I mean, it's quite extraordinary. I printed off quite a few, and this is only a selection. And I've been getting your emails, I've been getting your messages via social media, and of course getting your questions in the comment section of the last couple of videos. So what I've done is I've printed them off, not really in any kind of order, just as I was able to, and I'm going to try to go through as many as possible. I think there might be too many to go through today, so it might be a case of I have to stop and then maybe do another Q&A where I give you the opportunity again to send more questions in, and then I try to catch up with the previous ones. But anyway, we'll have a go at this, and let's see how we got on. Let's see how many I can get through. You can time me on this and see if I can get a good amount within our normal time frame. Okay, so the very first question I'm going to start with is from the King's Daughter, who is, can I say, a regular subscriber or YouTuber, always comes and joins me on the live chat. So thank you for sending your question. And you said these days royals marry non-royals. Absolutely, which is fantastic. Most of the newbies probably don't have the experience with live-in staff. Is it more difficult to work for a newcomer, and how soon do they usually adapt? You're quite right. I mean, with royals or even with aristocracy today, anyone marries into these families. It's not, at one time you had to be royal or an aristocrat to marry into these families, where today anyone from any walk of life, any background can join these households. And they might, well, most of them are not used to having any kind of staff, and certainly not butlers and cooks and chauffeurs and housekeepers. So it is a kind of new world for them. But from my experience, they've always been, because obviously part of my role is to make people feel welcome and comfortable, regardless, not just with family friends, also with the family. So if somebody is actually joining the household, it's important to kind of make them feel welcome, and part of that. Now, some of you have seen movies where the housekeeper or maybe the butler doesn't welcome a new addition to the family because somebody's marrying their lord or their lady, and they're very protective, and that's true. You do become protective of these families, but at the same time, I think it's really important to make people feel welcome into these families. So it does work. They do settle in, and it can really take anything from a few months to a few years. It's very difficult to kind of say how long, but the important bit is they do settle in, and then before too long it becomes second nature to them. And what's also nice is if they haven't had staff before, they're even more, I think, they're more appreciative of the fact that we're there to help them, which is fantastic. So, but very good question, King's Daughter. Thank you for sending that one in. This question made me laugh from Susan Brown, who said she really liked listening to the raw schedules of the time, and in a lovely Scottish voice. Thank you. I'm quite amazed at how many people seem to enjoy the Scottish accent. I shouldn't say amazed, but it's nice to know that you enjoy it and hopefully understand it. I think that's always been my concern, is that a Scottish accent can be a little bit tricky sometimes to understand. You go on to say, Susan, could you talk about antiques involved or other subject matter, jewellery, etc., like royal clocks, who looks after them? So you might find it interesting to watch, if you haven't already, the last At Home with the Royal Butler, where I actually visit a jewellers that cater to royalty. So that might be of interest. And of course, I'll think of maybe another At Home where maybe we could maybe do more of that, or again talk about some of those kind of things, items and possessions that royals have that you can even visit, you can even see in different private homes and museums here in the UK. The question about the clocks, it's interesting. There is actually people that are designated to look after the clocks, and they're obviously specialists. So I wouldn't have gone around, unfortunately, unlike the days of Downton Abbey or Upstairs, Downstairs, or any of these kind of old Remains of the Day, any of these kind of old movies where you see the butler winding the clock. We wouldn't do it because they're obviously antiques. They have to be looked after and cared for in a certain way. So they would get people to come in who would specially do that. So that's so there you go. I hope that answers the question. This has to be one of my favourite questions, and there's a reason I'm saying this, which I'll explain in a second. And it's from Navy Sticks. I hope I've got your name right, Navy Sticks, who said, am I correct in perceiving the connection between the actor and the butler is that of performance? Discreetly being in control of the stage set and ensuring the performers are all at their best. The reason I love this question is I've always said to the students that I train today, the butlers I train today, I've explained that you're acting, you are playing a part. Now, this goes for people in all walks of life. And I've said this 100 times. It doesn't matter if you think about it, policemen or policewomen, they all act and behave a certain way when they've got their uniforms on. It's not how they act and behave in their own home, but they've put on a uniform and they're acting as they should. Same with people in all sorts of walks of life, whether it be doctors or if you work in the bank or and even aristocracy, royals. I mean, of course, what you see is them, but there is also a part where they're having to put on a smile and do things day in, day out, which they've done 100 times before, and they've got to obviously be seen to come across as enjoying it. So there's even an extent of acting, even if you're royal, or if I can say even an aristocrat. So I think it's, and especially with butlers, absolutely. I mean, it is very much an acting role. As soon as you put on that uniform, you act and behave in a certain way. Your posture changes, your mannerisms kind of change, the language you use changes. And it's because it's quite noticeable. But what I do say to them is it's important that even though you go into that role, you don't suddenly become pompous or think you're better than somebody else, because that is one of the mistakes that I know some butlers make, or people in private service. And you're not better than anyone. That's my view, and that's how I was brought up. It's just putting on a really good performance, making sure that everybody enjoys the performance and that everyone knows what their part is to be played. And that's really how it all kind of comes together. So as I said, Navy, that it's, or Navy, please tell me if I've got your name wrong, but you're absolutely right. There is very much a degree of acting in the role of a butler. I can also tell that the Royal Darshans obviously agree with the answer to that last question, because you can obviously hear them in the background, and Shumba as well, very vocally agreeing with me, which I'm really pleased about. Okay, so our next question is from Tony Monte. When you're a butler for the royal family during meals or parties, do you stand in the background to see if anyone needs something, or do you wait for a bell to ring? Well, it really depends on who it is you're butlering for, because some families prefer you not to be in the room, completely out of sight, and other families like you to be in the room watching what's going on. But what I will say is that if I am in the room watching what's going on, and people make the assumption that I'm taking everything in and I'm watching and listening, and I really do switch off. I'm so busy focusing on the table and what's going on with how much obviously has been drank, or what's going on with the food. Have they finished? Do they need something else? I'm so busy focusing on that. I don't really I'm not listening to the conversation. And I've even had employers come up to me at the end of a meal and said, Grant, can you please remind me what was said at this part of the conversation, because I wasn't quite sure what was said, and I have no idea, because I really have gone into that butler mode. So quite simply, Tony, you can be in the room, and I have been in the room on occasions, and on other occasions I'm out of the room. And you are right, there is sometimes a little bell or a little buzzer, very traditional, but we still have those, and that is a great way that if you're not in the room, the principal or the person in charge, if you like, the host, hostess, your employer, they can ring the bell when they're ready for you to come into the room. So it's a very good system, actually. And do you know, somewhere I've even got an old Victorian bell from a private home that obviously would have been used. Unfortunately, it's no longer connected to anything, but it's a nice little thing, a little trinket that I have on one of my tables. Unfortunately, my guests press it. Nobody comes running, not even I go running, because I can't hear it, sadly. No longer works. Okay, so the next question is from Lucy Braun, who asks, does a butler sometimes have the occasion to select music for the residents, so that something the principal is playing? When I say the principal, I mean the employer. So they've got music playing that the principal enjoys, or even at other times. So I think basically, obviously, the question is, do you put music on that the, say, royal or aristocrat enjoys, so that when they come in, it's already picked? Yes, I used to do that. I could be asked to, not so much asked, but if I knew there was a particular type of music, or something that I knew they like listening to, then I would put music on. Normally in the evening, like dinner drinks is the perfect time to put some nice music on in the background, and it just kind of lifts up the atmosphere, a little bit of a party atmosphere. And but it depends. If it's just the principals on their own, then I'd put something maybe just a bit more soothing, relaxing, maybe a bit of Frank Sinatra. And if it was something a bit more party atmosphere, I might, bit of Nat King Cole. But that's not for anybody in particular. That's just my choice in music. I should quickly mention before you all start thinking that's what they're listening to. But yes, whatever their particular music that they enjoy listening to, then I would make sure that I've got it ready to kind of go as and when needed. And I'm glad to say that Alexa and Siri have not yet replaced that part of a butler's job. Not yet. Watch this space. We're in competition with them. So the next question is from Matt Leach, who said, I would love to hear about your current butler in Etiquette School with Princess Katrina. Please keep us updated with all the activities. Well, and somebody else actually asked, what do I do now I've retired? I love the fact that somebody thinks I'm retired. I'm not retired. It would be lovely to be retired. No, it wouldn't be lovely to be retired, because I enjoy working too much. I enjoy doing all this kind of thing in my classes and my schools and all the rest of it. So the Butler in Etiquette School is something that's been running now for quite a few years. It's called a Royal Etiquette and Royal Butler School because we've got Princess Katerina, who is a cousin of the British and Serbian royal families, and she's the patron of the school and one of my lecturers. And we've run the Royal School of Etiquette and Royal School of Butlers for, I want to say about 7 or 8 years now. And it's kind of, the Butler schools mainly run at Blenheim Palace. We run a couple of courses each year. We've launched it in Scotland, so we have also been running the courses in Scotland. We also run the etiquette courses at Blenheim, but I also have them running at the Ritz Hotel in London. And from time to time, we go to other venues across the UK, including Borthwick Castle in Scotland. There's been Broomhall House in Scotland, home of the own Countess of Elgin. Britannia, Her Majesty's former royal yacht, Britannia, where I've done a few things there. So there's quite a few kind of different venues that we go to, or that I'll go to. And as I said, we run our etiquette and butler courses throughout the year. And I've even travelled across the world doing the etiquette classes. And I've taught everybody from, the classes that I've held have included classes for royalty, celebrities, VIPs. So there's a real kind of mixture of people that like to attend them. And the same with the butler school. We accept everybody and anybody. I have a lot of people ask me, is it just male butlers? No, male or female, any age, all welcome, and really good fun. And sometimes with the etiquette side of things, I do a lot of television work. For those of you that might not know, I do a lot of media work as well, and you'll occasionally find me on television teaching somebody how to behave in a kind of humorous, fun way with my etiquette tips and rules. And I'm also a royal commentator, so you'll find me in different documentaries from time to time, or on different news channels, or daytime television shows talking about royal events and occurrences that are taking place. If you want further information about the Etiquette and Butler School, please go to my website, theroyalbutler.co.uk, and if you go to the page about the classes, or etiquette classes or butler classes, you'll find everything there you need to know about what I'm running. And as I said, you can book. I even do online classes, so if you like the idea of doing an online class, then that's where you can book it. And I also offer a very special discount for my, if I can say, the people online that like to follow what I do. I offer special discounts for them, so it's worth checking it all out. So we've got a question here from Quake Girl, NZ, which I think is New Zealand, and I know Quake Girl because you join live chat, and we have chats there as well. So thank you for sending in your question. Forgive me if there's anybody that I've already mentioned and you do join the live chat. Sometimes I can't always see everyone that's there, so forgive me, but I'm always grateful for everyone that joins. Right, so Quake Girl has said or asked that you don't really hear about lineage or customs or things that get handed down from mothers to daughters, from one generation to the other. Is that something that goes on? So I think, again, what you're trying to say is, does anything get passed on from family members down these kind of family lines, which may have been passed down maybe 3, 4, 5 generations? And yes, there are certain things in some of these homes that do get passed down. One of the most notable things is sometimes tiaras. So at one time, the family tiara would have passed from mother to eldest daughter and would have been worn for their wedding. The wedding day, and then after that point they could then wear the tiara, which is one of the etiquette rules, that a lady doesn't wear a tiara until she's got married, and then she can wear it unless, of course, you are a royal. So that's just one example, but of course there's many things, brooches, pieces of jewellery, all sorts of things that get passed on, even down to linen. You can even have like really nice linen that might have belonged to a great-great-grandmother. It's been passed down to different family members, so that they still use the same dinner tablecloth or afternoon tea tablecloth that's been used for a few generations. So it's quite nice when things get passed down, and I'm all for that. So I think if you're in that position and you're able to pass things on to the younger family members as and when the time's right, I think it's a great idea. So my next question is from Las Valdes, who asked, I wonder how much help royals get from valets or ladies' maids in terms of the daily toilet, dressing, etc. From my point of view, as a valet, my role was to look after the clothes, iron clothes, wash them, iron them, put them away, that kind of thing. As far as dressing, that's a very old kind of tradition that once took place, and it's not something, I understand it and I know how to do it, but it was not something I'd have been asked to do, because it's very personal when it comes to obviously dressing yourself. So you don't really need somebody to do that, unless the only time that you might have somebody to help you dress is if you maybe are struggling, or say you've had an injury and you can't use a hand or something. Then of course there might be, and then you can't do, say for a gentleman, you can't use cufflinks. So there is obviously sometimes there'll be occasions or times when maybe they do need a hand. So but not often. Not often. But as I said, the main role of a lady's maid and a valet is mainly about kind of washing, laundering the clothes, ironing the clothes, and putting them away, and also sometimes putting things out for people to wear if you know what they'd like to wear. Kendra Ferguson has sent in a question saying, I'd love to know about royal babies. Where do they go when the parents are having dinner, or if they're out shooting and that kind of thing? Well, this is where, thankfully, they have nannies. So if, but when I say nannies, the thing about parents that I've witnessed today in royal homes or private aristocratic homes is parents are very much hands-on these days, and the role of a nanny is just to kind of assist. And you're quite right, if there is a dinner party or something, then potentially nanny will look after the children, but it's also not unknown for a butler to also assist. If so when I was training as an under butler, there might be occasions when I would have helped look after children. So it's not an unusual thing for the staff to kind of assist. The wonderful thing about when you work for these families, and as a butler, or well, especially from my point of view as a butler, you do build up this amazing relationship with them, and so you kind of almost with the children, you almost feel you become very protective of them, and you don't mind when you get asked to kind of help look after them, but also they learn from you. So I've mentioned it when it comes to etiquette and how to do things, and people have asked, where do they learn all this? Well, they learn from the staff. They learn from the butlers, the housekeeping teams, how we lay tables, how we make beds, how bathrooms are cleaned, all the basic kind of skills that you need to understand about running a home, which is very important for when it comes to royal and aristocratic homes. They very much learn from us, so it's which is great, because then you kind of feel that what you've learned, and you're passing it on to that generation to keep these traditions and the way things are done, to keep it all going. And I also noticed that Kendra's also said that she has got 2 miniature chocolate and tan and red darshans. And you've just put at the end here, if you know, you know. So I think we all know what darshans are like. Well, those of us who've got darshans, we know what they're like. And as you know, I've got quite a few of them. I've got a little gang, and I love them to bits. And for those of you that have been watching the quarantine etiquette programs that I filmed last year, and I also did, I think, one this year, they became quite popular. It was basically me kind of teaching them how to behave in a kind of civilized manner through etiquette. So if you want it's a bit of fun, a bit of humour. So if you want to kind of liven up the weekend, go and watch some of those, and you'll see my gang of royal darshans. But my royal darshans, Kendra, say hello to your darshans. Okay, so greetings to South Africa, as this next question is from Ladybug from South Africa, who has sent me her greetings. And the question is, I'm wondering, were you usually required to remain on duty until the host and hostess have retired for the night? And you're talking about the evenings when there's no dinner parties. Well, yes, as a butler, I mean, when you're on duty, you're kind of on duty until your principals kind of go to bed. So if they were, say they went to bed at 11 o'clock or something, then that'd be about the same time that I would go. And it wasn't that, please don't think it's because we have to be up until that point. In some situations, I certainly would never be asked to stay up until they've gone to bed. There was obviously a certain part in the evening, normally after dinner, that would be me finished, and then I'd kind of retire to my quarters, and the principals, the family, whoever it might be, would maybe carry on sitting up, chatting, watching television, and that kind of thing. So I certainly, it's not like the olden days when the butlers would actually lock the house down last thing at night. You'll find it in a lot of homes today. It depends on the home, depends on the family, but sometimes they'll even lock the house up themselves, because this isn't quite Royals, because with Royal homes it's a very different setup because of security and things. Rebecca Gilstrap has asked if the principals were formal and respectful when speaking to myself, as I would be with them. And absolutely, the wonderful thing in all the years that I've worked for these families, and including the Royal family, the British Royal family, they've always been very, the way I was to speak to them, the way they speak to me, it's always been a very respectful manner, very polite, never a cross word at all, and that's quite a nice thing. So no, they really are very respectful, which is, it's kind of what you would hope, isn't it, really? And then I've got quite a long question from L. I think that's all I've got here, but it's interesting because I'm not going to read the whole lot, because it's quite a lot. But it's the bit about if somebody chokes, am I able to kind of do CPR? Now, I did do a first aid course. In fact, I think quite a lot of butlers get encouraged to do first aid courses. But as you're aware, you've got to be a little bit careful, because if somebody is kind of struggling, of course, if you can do the Heinrich manoeuvre and that kind of thing, you've got to be able to assist. But at the same time, you don't want to make a situation worse. So it's all about kind of judging it and working out what's the best course of action. And of course, the first thing I'd be doing also is making sure somebody's calling 999, which in the UK is for emergency services and ambulance and that kind of thing. But if I have witnessed somebody choking, I remember many years ago when I kind of started off. I say many years ago, but over 20 years ago, I remember a lady started choking. I think it was a lady I did some hotel work experience for a few weeks just to see the difference between a private home and a hotel. And this one person started choking, and luckily somebody did the Heinrich manoeuvre and released the object, whatever it was, that got stuck in her throat. And it really did kind of, it was quite scary. I found it really scary. And at the same time, you're really grateful that somebody knew what to do. So if you don't have anyone around, always be careful when you item, because it does happen. And as my mother always used to say, chew your food carefully. So I think that's very, very wise words from my late mother. So Meg Frank has sent in the question asking about accommodation, asking if I got accommodation, what was the accommodation that I got with my different positions. And it really depended on who I worked for and where it was. It could be anything from a flat to a house. When I worked for members of the British Royal family, I had a house. When I worked for the Dukes of Bedford, I had a flat. So it's very kind of dependent on who you work for. And as I've mentioned before, I left quite a few years ago, but I was lucky enough when I left to still be able to live in a little cottage on the estate. So just to make it quite clear, I don't live in Highgrove House itself. I live on the estate, not too far from Prince Charles's house, but I live in a beautiful little cottage that I love. And I've been here for quite a few years now. I want to say it's probably about 17 years. So it's certainly is, it's very much my home, and I love it here. Mick Hall has said, excuse me if it seems a bit rude, but a butler's well paid. Well, I've yet to meet a millionaire butler, but watch this space. I play the lottery every week, so you never know. Hello to Pam Newman, who's asked the question, I'd like to know about the stables. Do some of the great homes still keep horses? Yes, they do, Pam. Quite a few private homes still have horses, have stables. And it's very much part of the way of kind of country life, especially in the country. So I'm glad to be able to tell you that yes, some of the great homes still have stables. Claire Evans has asked what it's like to be a butler on Christmas Day for the family. And do you know what? That might be a really good little conversation for another time. Maybe that's one we could discuss. We could do one on in conversation to do with Christmas time and royals. So if I may, I might hold that one back, and just because of your suggestion, Claire, we could actually do a little conversation actually on it. But just to let you know, I was never actually on duty at Sandringham on Christmas Day, but the Christmas period with the Royal family was always great fun. Always amazing, really good fun, and lots of great memories. So I'm gonna keep that one. That's a good one for another day. However, Claire, you've also asked one other question, what is the best and worst thing about being a royal butler? The best thing is the experiences you have and the people you meet and the honour of looking after, for example, the Queen. I mean, that is amazing. And the worst part about being a royal butler, there isn't really a worst part. I mean, I enjoyed every part of it. I think if you'd say what was the worst bit, maybe my nerves of when I actually got to dance with the Queen, which is in one of the previous conversations where I explained that I got to dance with her, and it was a dream come true, but I was also terrified. And so maybe that I could say was one of the best and the worst moments, because I suddenly thought, what happens if I get this wrong? End up in the Tower of London. And then we've got a question from Milo Moa, who said, would I write a book at some point? Part autobiography, part butler and etiquette tips. I think this is a great idea. I've never said no. I'm always looking at different ideas. I'm looking at what people have already got out there. I think an etiquette book, maybe one on my experiences, as you've mentioned, maybe a butler tip book or something could be an idea. What do all of you think? Would you like me to do a kind of an autobiography, as you said, and maybe kind of focused on some of the modern day etiquette tips or traditions and some of the kind of roles and advice for the butlers out there? I don't know if that would be of interest. Maybe it's a couple of books. But let me know what you think. Would you buy such a thing? That's the other thing. I have an agent. I'm very lucky. I've got an agent and a manager. And those are the kind of things they look at, is to see, is it something people would want to have? So if I know there's an audience there that would like these kind of things, I can say, there's people that would like that. So let me know your thoughts. Milo, I've got to quickly say, I love the other part of your question about doing the book signings and television interviews. I remember doing a talk at the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. I held an afternoon tea class, an etiquette tea class, a royal afternoon tea class a couple of years ago. And it was the very first etiquette class in the Blackpool Tower Ballroom, and I hosted it. And at the end of it, I agreed to do some autographs. And I had no idea that there would be as many. The queue was unbelievable. And I was there for a good few hours doing autographs. But I managed to do it. So if I ever had the opportunity to do a book and there was autographs to be, book signings to be done, I'd be able to do it. I've had a bit of practice, as I said, at the Blackpool Tower Ballroom. So I'm gonna answer one more question, but I've only got through the first couple of pages. There is so many pages to go through, and if you forgive me and you don't mind, I might save them and do another Q&A in a few weeks, or maybe in another month or so, and keep your questions coming in, because I could always add on to it, and every now and again we can do a Q&A. Maybe we should do a YouTube live, and we could do Q&A live, and that way I'd be able to kind of answer the questions there and then. What do you think? Would that work? Let me know. As always, keep your comments coming in below. Let me know what you think of these ideas. So the last question I'm going to answer today is from Shay Rose, who said, after being a butler for so many years, would you be comfortable if the roles were reversed? As I said, I play the lottery, so you never know. I could win the lottery, and then I want a beautiful big house for myself and my darshans, and of course my family. And then I would I have a butler? Obviously, you're saying if the roles were reversed, would I be comfortable with that? And yes, I would, because I know what I understand the role and what's involved in it, and it's something that I would. The problem I would have is that every time I ask the butler to do something, I'd then be worried that I could probably do it better. And I'm not trying to say that I'm better, that anyone's better than anyone else. What I mean by that is, I'll give you an example. I love cleaning. I'm a very good housekeeper. Now, I've had other people come and sometimes help clean the house in occasions if I've got something going on or some event or something and I need a hand. But the problem is, my cleaning's a lot more, I literally clean everything. I lift everything. I go through every single corner to make sure it's perfect. Where normal people, if I can say that, will kind of do the areas that need done. So same with a butler. So if I had a butler, the butler would probably do an amazing job as perfect as good as can be. But for me, I'd probably still be going around thinking, oh, I would have done it like that, or no, I don't like that. I prefer it done that way. And even though that can be part of when you have a butler, it's kind of train them to how you want things done. I would feel it's not fair doing that to a butler, because that was my career. So it's a very good question. It's a really good question, and I'd be comfortable because I'd know how to treat them. I'd know how to behave and that kind of thing. But I think the problem is you'd probably find that when the butler goes to bed, I'd be then getting up in the night to then redo things to make sure it's kind of done to my level. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just because I've been doing it for so long and I've just become so particular about how things are done. But anyway, so I hope that kind of answer your question. But until I win the lottery, we'll never know. So we'll just have to just keep an eye on this, keep watching this space, and we'll see what happens. And there we go. So I'm going to stop there. Otherwise, this would turn into a marathon. Before anybody asks, the roses behind me are actually from my garden. They're actually David Austin roses, and the scent is amazing. They're beautiful, and I decided to bring a few in, which is such a good idea because it just gives the room such a lovely fragrance. So so if you've got roses, it's always worth cutting a few off and bringing them in, and it also encourages new growth. Apparently, there's a little tip for you. I hope you've enjoyed today's In Conversation with the Royal Butler, today's question and answer. I'm sorry I've only managed to do so many questions or answer so many questions because there has just been so many. But please keep questions coming in. I will keep trying to save them so that we can do another Q&A. And I will, for anybody that has already sent in a question and I've not answered it, I will do another Q&A maybe in a few weeks or a month or so. We can do another one. And as I mentioned, maybe we do a YouTube live. Maybe that might be another way of kind of quickly getting through them. Just an idea, but let me know your thoughts. So if there's anything I've suggested, please let me know what you think. And as always, please keep subscribing. Please keep sharing these videos. Get your friends to subscribe and to watch. Keep the comments coming in. Keep those thumbs up coming in because I love it all. As you know, you really do know, I read all your comments. I do try to respond to as many of you as possible. And I love your ideas for future conversations and future At Home with the Royal Butlers. I'm loving these ideas as well. And I will keep the content coming along. And I've got some fun ideas for future conversations coming up. But until Wednesday, when I'm back with At Home with the Royal Butler at 5 p.m. And then next Friday, I'll be back with the next In Conversation with the Royal Butler, once again at 5 p.m. But until then, stay safe and thank you so much for watching.